This is the Anything But Banker to Broker podcast. We're going to be talking to some of the industry's best and brightest about the unique pathways they took before stepping into broking and how it set them up for success. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, so today's guest needs minimal introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. So we got Panetta on today. So what he did was he started out working as a spray painter in a panel beaters. Enjoyed it, was clearly grafting his arse away, but figured out there was something better for him out there. What that was broken. Obviously, you all probably know him now as Panetta, broker coach, but we're going to get into really what led him up to doing that. How are you getting on, mate?
I'm doing really well, mate. It's Monday morning and ready to go.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it. I was up till I woke up at 2 this morning to watch United play. And we beat Liverpool.
Yeah, very good.
Mate, talk to me. So what was your upbringing like? Like what did mum and daddy Panetta do? Like kick this drive into you.
I had a really unique upbringing, mate. So my parents were 15 when I was born. So super young. Do you know what I mean? Super young. My grandmother was 33 when she became a grandmother. Really young family dynamic. Grew up at Nonna's house, shared bunk beds with my two uncles. One was 12, one was 18, and then my mum and dad were there in one of the other bedrooms as well. So it was super unique. I feel like I was raised more by a tribe rather than just my folk. So lucky.
It's funny, mate. Like of the generations, the three generations, I'm the one who broke the mold in that I had a child at the latest. Nana had my mum at 18, my mum had me at 21, and then my nana's mum, which is my great grandma, had her when she was 17.
Yeah.
Similar in ways, and obviously that must have been, tough, but you've got a family I can see where there was a lot of support there and probably allowed your mum and dad to still carry on growing as they were, right?
Yeah, well, there was elements of it that it was tough. Like obviously you don't have a lot of surplus cash when you teenage parents, but there was a lot of love in the house. Do you know what I mean? My grandparents spent a lot of time with me. My uncles, I grew up with them side by side, so I hang out a lot with my uncles when I was young. Go do cool shit all the time, and then obviously I had me mum and dad there, so there were parts of an element of it that were pretty tough. But the older I get, the more I sort of appreciate having that relatively unique upbringing.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think family are the most important thing, and you see it a lot these days. Everyone's super spread out. Like I'd go to big family do's and. My granny was one of 10, my great-granddad was one of 11, and there'd be people coming up to me like, "Hey, mate, I'm your cousin." I don't think you are. You know what I mean? But yeah, similar in that way. We had three generations under one roof as well until I was 11, and yeah. So what did your mum and dad end up doing? So what did they end up doing as their jobs?
So my dad was in smash repairs. So when my mum fell pregnant, my dad got an apprenticeship as a spray painter. He worked for a local panel shop for a number of years and then ultimately ended up going out on his own and building his own smash repair business, which he just recently exited a couple of years ago. So it was a career smash repairer.
I'm assuming that's where you started working?
No. So I don't know if you could tell, I was a little bit of a little shit at school. I wanted to get out of there, man. I still remember year 10, it was the school certificate. I finished the last exam and I remember going into the principal's office. I'm like, mate, I'm leaving. He's like, what do you mean? I said, the exam's done, I'm gone. I left school that day, I walked out and never came back. I was mowing lawns that exact afternoon, actually, with my uncle. It was, my dad didn't want me to be the boss's son. So when I said I want to become a spray painter, I wanted to get into smash repairs, he's like, that's fine. That you're going to go out and you're going to go to a smash repair shop and you're going to try to get a job and apply for a job and you're going to do it that way and you're going to do your apprenticeship somewhere else. That's not with me.
For the reason that he didn't want there to be this bias or this perceived bias against you being just the boss's son and you've been getting a handout, I guess, and that's why you got a job.
100%. Yeah? And it was a lot like that in the smash repair industry. Do you know what I mean? There was a lot of guys at even we ended up working, like the fathers there and the grandfathers started it and the sons were there. And he's like, nah, you just got to go. You got to go out on your own. If you're going to do this, you're not going to lean on me. You're going to go figure it out by yourself.
Fair, mate. Totally fair. And what was your day-to-day like in that job?
Far out. It was a long time ago now. So I was a spray painter apprentice, right? So there's distinction between being a spray painter and being a panel beater. The panel beaters fix the cars and the spray painters paint them once they're fixed. So the job was basically rubbing down, masking up, painting in the booth, and then buffing and polishing the cars. They were largely the four jobs. I tell you what, on a cold winter's morning and you're wet rubbing a car and the sludge is going down your arm and your feet are soaked and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's not It's not the most fun thing in the world. It was, I've said this before, that having that sort of hard yakka from such a young age, right? And it's relatively tough work, and there's dust and there's fumes. When I got into finance, it's like the hardest day in finance is still better than the best days on the smash repair floor, just because the sheer difficulty of the work, where it was laborious, it was messy, and it was difficult work as well. So that the combination of the three, when you're getting into finance, like, oh, I've got to send a couple of emails and I've got to make a couple of phone calls. This is not hard work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want to speak too ill of it, but I can see why it would be very easy to make that distinction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When did you sit there and figure out, do you know what, I want to do something else? Like I've got a feeling that maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not going to pick up dad's business later down the line. Like when did that sort of hit you?
It was, look, I always wanted to work in finance. I always wanted to work in finance ever since I was a little kid. I remember sitting around the table on a Sunday night barbecue and we were watching the news. And it was when the bank CEOs first started making like really big money, millions, right? And everyone at the table, all my family, they're all, tradies, blue collar workers. And they were just so ropeable that this bloke could be earning so much money, this bank CEO. And in my head, in my mind as a child, I was like, if I earn that sort of money, I can buy Ferraris, I can buy whatever I want. And so I always wanted to be in finance ever since I was a little kid. But I was all right in primary school, but when I got into high school and I started getting myself into a little bit of mischief, it was like there was no career advisor that was going to send me to go into finance. So they're like, you got to go get a trade. So I always wanted to do it. I never had the belief in myself or the confidence in myself that I would be able to do it. So I done the next best thing and was go paint cars in the trade.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a misconception, right? That like if a kid misbehaves, that the only solution to them is like they're not going to be book smart. That's not for them. You got to get some tools in the hand and you've got to get them out doing manual labor.
Yeah, and look, it probably makes a little bit of sense. And I was in the smash repair industry for about 10 years before I got out. And really the reason that I got out is because I worked really, really hard from a really young age, right? And even when I was 18, I was doing massive hours and I got really good at the craft, right? I got really good at the trade of being a spray painter. So I was on men's wages when I was still a kid. It helped a lot because my boss at the time was an avid property investor. He taught me a lot about property investing, and I ended up buying my first investment property when I was 18, right? So it wasn't all doom and gloom. I got this massive head start from working at such a young age. But because I was working so much and I was doing this physical labor, by the time I was in my mid-20s, my back was cooked, right? And so I essentially got to the point where I couldn't continue to do the physical labor, and the doctors are like, mate, you got to stop this. You got to figure something else out. I'm like, mate, I've never done anything else in my life. I've only ever painted cars. And they're like, you're not going to be able to keep painting cars, I tell you. And it got to the point where I ended up in rehab for 3 months for my back. I still remember going to the pools and like everyone's bloody 90 years old and I'm this mid-20s young fella walking up and down the pool with all these old fellas and these old ladies. And my hand was basically forced. Went back to TAFE, done my year 10 certificate, done a couple of other certificates, and just sort of figured my way out from there, mate. But it wasn't some genius plan. My back was cooked and I had to figure out a way to eat, basically.
Fair, mate. And between the spray painting, going to rehab, and then starting in Broken, was there anything else that happened in between then, or was that sort of like a slow burner?
No, there was. So my brother-in-law is a futures trader, and he's been a futures trader for a very long time. And he basically taught me a lot of the economic side of things, right? Where you get out all these books, and every Wednesday night he'd teach me. And he's like, mate, you get all this. Like, you're too smart to be a spray painter. Like, you got to, you know what I mean? You got to come get a job with me. So I ended up working for a little bit for a prop trading firm in the city, trading futures. And that was awesome. And it was awesome to be in the environment because it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to like significant amounts of money. You know what I mean? When you're working in smash repairs, you're doing blue collar work. Do you know what I mean? You're earning a decent wage for decent work. But when I got into futures trading, there were some guys that were making millions. Do you know what I mean? I was like, man, there's a whole other side to the world where it's, you're not earning $1,000 a week by working 50 hours. There's guys that actually make huge amounts of money in this world. And so I'd done that for a little while, for a couple of years. I wasn't great at it, Joe. I wasn't great at it. It just didn't suit my personality type. Do you know what I mean? And I still remember I ended up having a couple of good days and ultimately decided that this isn't for me because I had no satisfaction from it. It was just me and the computer screen. And I was like, oh man, even if even if I end up doing really well at this, where I'm not doing that great at it, if I do end up doing really well at it, I don't think it's me. I don't think it's a me for the rest of my life thing. And so ultimately made the challenge to throw that back in and go back to the drawing board.
I feel you with that because I've tried doing regular trading, day trading as like a hobby. And I had this, this idea, buy 4 screens and do it. And then I sat and I played around on the test accounts that they let you mess around on. I was just like, oh fuck, I could never sit there and do this all day long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what
No
you
matter
mean.
what, no matter what the financial outcome was, I'm much happier just bloody slapping some money into an ETF or putting some money into a stock and just leaving it. Like I don't think I have the patience to sit there and be exiting and entering trades and whatnot. It's just not. Yeah, it's totally not me as well.
Get it.
So you said you studied some stuff at TAFE, right? You did a few qualifications. Was there anything, did you do your cert for there, or was that, I guess you looked at
No.
the industry and
Yeah, so what actually caught my eyes, it was the yellow brick road model, right? Because the yellow brick road model was relatively fresh back then when I got into the industry more than, call it 10 or 12 years ago. And I like it that it was this, holistic financial services business, which really caught my eye because I was deeply interested in that at that point. And so essentially I just got on the phones and started calling the local yellow brick road branches until one of the guys gave me a gig, and I basically, well, the first bloke I called, he didn't give me a go, and then I called who ended up becoming my bosses at one of the Yellow Brick Road branches, and I basically went in there, bought my suit, didn't fit properly. Do you know what I mean? I'm this spray painter, and I was like, I don't ever want to get paid. I just want to be here in the office. I just want to learn. So they gave me a couple of weeks trial, and that was my entry into the mortgage broking industry.
did you come on as like a CSM loan processor associate type role? Like what did they have you doing really to get you, get
I was basically an assistant to one of the brokers. Go get the coffees in the morning, package up the deals, really out apply online, make sure the compliance is all done. If there was loan docs to be signed, like driving out to the clients, picking up support documents. You remember back then it wasn't all digital, you know what I mean? There was still a lot of paperwork that had to be physically done. And so it was basically was a support person's role, but my job was to be an assistant to one of the head brokers.
and very soon on you were like, you know what, I feel like I can do this. There's some elements of you making tea that probably you had from your starting and your spray painting days and stuff. You're like, oh, okay, I can see some similarities here.
Yeah, it was the couple of the biggest differences was A, sitting down all day, B, being on a computer all day, and C, getting on the phones. I didn't have to do any of those three things when I was a spray painter. I didn't talk to clients at all, just painted cars. I was never in front of a computer. I was just, in the workshop and never sat down. The only time I would sit down was to eat lunch and eat smoko. And so there was these relatively three large differences that I had to get used to pretty quickly.
What did you, I guess, what did you not initially like at the start? And then what was you like, yeah, this is very much more me than what I was previously doing?
I don't think I disliked anything about it, mate. I don't think I disliked anything about it. I loved it from the moment I got into the office. I got into the environment. I'd hear the other guys on the phone calls, and we'd have the meetings, and they'd talk about deals, and they'd workshop. Even talking to the clients, I was super passionate about real estate because of my involvement in the smash repair industry with my old boss, right, who was super passionate about real estate. So it was something that I was deeply interested in. I was good with the numbers, and I understood the finance aspect of it. And I still remember the day that I found out about Trail. Right, I was working late at the office. The two bosses were there. Everyone else had gone home, and they were basically explaining that they were starting to explain the business model to me after I'd been there for 3 months. And they were like, we get an upfront commission, and then we get a trailing commission, and it just blew my mind, Joe. I was like, hold on. I get paid for doing the loan, and then I get paid every single month thereafter, as long as the loan stays intact. And they're like, yeah. And it, to me, was like having little properties everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It was like I had all these little properties that were paying 20 or 30 bucks a month or whatever the number was. And I still remember I was like, oh, I've got to go. And I ran back to the car. I was calling my wife. I'm like, we're going to be rich. I was just like, I could never conceive. I could never conceive that you could build businesses like that, right? That had this recurring revenue element to it. You got to think as a spray painter. If I painted a bumper bar, I got paid for painting the bumper bar. I didn't then get paid the month after if the paint stayed on the bar, right? That's not how spray painting works. And so when I found out that there was this element of recurring revenue to home loans, my entire view on the world changed. Everything changed. I still remember how excited I was. I ran out of that office. I was like, I've got to go home and tell my wife, like, this is, we're on.
In smash repairs, as if That unlucky person drives away and smashes that bumper again and has to come back.
That is the end, and you got to do all the work again too. You got to do all the work again if they smash it. So for me, it was just mind boggling. It was just mind boggling, and that was hook, line, and sinker for me.
I love it, mate. I love it. And what was that transition like? Not to broker, but everything in between day zero to when you became a broker for the very first day. Like, what were you? How long was that time period? What were you doing? Like, talk to me about that.
I don't think it took very long at all. So I was sort of the first one in the office. I was the last one to leave. I'd wait at the front for someone to get there in the morning, and then I wouldn't leave until whoever the last person was left. I didn't have keys to the office or anything, but I wanted to be immersed in it. And because I was A, deeply interested in it, and B, working so hard at it, and C, in the right environment with the right people, it was noticed, right? It was noticed by my bosses. They're like, "Hey, mate, you should do a Cert 4. You should, work to become a broker." And I did. I got that Cert 4, punched it out, and then ultimately transitioned from being an assistant to one of the brokers to being a salaried broker. I think I was on 40 grand a year or something like that, and a 20% comp split. And I just essentially started writing a couple of little deals on my own by myself.
And the expectation of you in that 40K role was that you were still learning, or were you? It was that day one as a broker. Like, right, you're out there now. You sort of semi on your own, using all of this knowledge and this time that we've invested into you.
Well, what a lot of the lead flow at the start was coming from the branch, right? It wasn't, I was a young kid, you know what I mean? Didn't know about marketing. I didn't know about any of that stuff. So a lot of the lead flow was coming in. And I was super lucky that I had the lead flow coming in. But then when I got the lead flow, I basically rolled the red carpet out for every single person that I spoke to. And then when you're operating like that, it didn't take long for people to start referring friends and family. And it got to the point where the bosses are like, "Hey, you should actually go on com only, take 50% of the comms, forget about the salary." And that happened relatively quickly within a few months. We sort of transitioned from a salary and comms to a com only model. And I rolled like that for the next couple of years.
What was that first year like when you were comms only? Because look, that is a huge off putter for, I think, a lot of people that really have the skills, the knowledge, the drive to do it. They can't separate the idea of not having something guaranteed. So what was your first year like, mate? I'd be keen to hear, like, how did you find it?
Mate, it was awesome. It was so good. I was happy to do the work. We didn't have kids at that stage. We had a mortgage on an apartment that me and my wife had. My wife was working, so there was a little bit of stability to the income. But coming from a spray painter, that first year I probably made in excess of double, maybe triple what I ever made as a spray painter. So for me, even though there was an element of risk, it was like, this is a lot of money. And so I adapted to it pretty quickly, but I was relatively young. It would be very hard today if I had, you know what I mean, all the responsibilities that I got today to go and do that. I think there would have to be some sort of element of some sort of stability to it. But at that stage, I was, young, wild, ready to work really hard, and was making good money. I was lucky being in the environment that I was in, that I had a running start from day one. It wasn't, there was no lull, which a lot of people do come into the industry, and there's a long lull before they do start to settle volumes that are decent volumes. But for me, it was straight into it.
So you was under that YBR brand for, what was it, 4 or 5 years in total?
No, a couple of years, maybe 24
And then
months or
you ended
something
up
in
being a
total.
principal yourself. Is that
No,
right?
no, I didn't. I never ended up being a principal. So I was a contractor the whole time that I was there in that broker role. And then there was a little bit of talk about equity and stuff like that, and it sort of didn't end up stacking up for me. Young and young and dumb, as they might call it, but ambitious. You know what I mean? And so I ultimately made the decision to go out on my own when the percentage of the revenue that I was producing was far in excess of what I was keeping. So most of the lead flow ended up towards the back end coming from me. And half of the comms was still going out. And for me, I talk about that a lot now, about still being able to add value to brokers as they grow in their own careers. And for me, there was just that tipping point where it didn't make sense anymore. And there was a little bit of throttling from the Yellow Brick Road network about personal branding and marketing, because I was starting to learn about that stuff now, and it was frowned upon to a certain degree. Do you know what I mean? Of promoting a personal brand over the Yellow Brick Road brand.
You can understand. It makes total sense
100%. They
because
got to protect the model. Do you know what I mean? And I talk a lot about it now, where if brokers become bigger than the brokerage they're working for, they're going to go, they're going to bounce. And so it's a protection mechanism, which I didn't understand at the time. But I understand now as I've matured and spent more time in the game. Do you know what I mean?
And what was your next step from here? I assume it was a lateral one to run your own business, right?
We did. We started the Aureus groups. There was the financial planner there at the Yellow Brick Road office, and we'd done really well. It was like, branch of the year, all sorts of stuff. Do you know what I mean? We took out a lot of the gongs. I was young under the year, top 30 under 30, rising star, all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So the branch, we were doing really well. Everyone was crushing it. And me and my old business partner, we decided to go out and have a crack at this diversified financial services style business. That was the Aureus group that we built: mortgage broking, financial advice, business coaching, accounting, property. We had a little bit of outsourcing. And that was the next step. And that's where I spent the last 7 years, starting, scaling, and ultimately selling my stake in that group before I took 6 months off and then started the broker coach business.
And being savvy as you ended up becoming over those years, right? Was your goal as owner of that business to scale it up and exit? Was that sort of what you were doing? You'd created this ideal lifestyle that you wanted to get to?
It was the intention was to never sell. Right, that was the intention of when we started the group. And my business partner that I founded it with, my old business partner, he's still there. He's still in the business. A lot of when I sold, a lot of it went over to him. And the intention was to basically stick this out for the rest of our lives. But, a lot changed between when I started that business and when I sold it. I didn't have any kids when I started. I didn't have a big, filthy Sydney mortgage when I started. And as time went on, my lifestyle changed. The needs, the requirements, the wants that I had in life began to shift and ebb as well. And then there was no premeditated exit. The opportunity came up to exit. And when my wife and I looked at the numbers, we're like, hey, we're done. And there was never a plan B. I didn't know I was going to go into coaching. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just knew that chapter of my life had come to fruition. It had been completed. And then once that seed was in my head, I had to go. Do you know what I mean? And then ultimately spent 9 months packaging that up, getting that thing sold. And then that was it. So it wasn't some genius plan. It was something that was put upon my desk more than anything.
Fair, mate. It's totally fair. And then you became the man that at least I know you as today, which is Sam Panetta, broker coach. And you said in your group there that you had, there was a coaching element to that anyway. Is that where you
Yes.
think that idea came from? 100%?
No. So I never saw myself as a business coach, Joe. I still don't even see myself as a business coach now. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, business coaches are a bit weird, but I loved finance. I love the game of finance. And when I sold that business, I spent a lot of time with family, friends, associates, people that I'd done business with over the years, and there was just this recurring theme of saying you should get in and coach brokers. You should get in and coach brokers. You're getting in and coach brokers. I was like, oh no, I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want to do with my life. And to top that off, I had a non-compete in place for business coaching. So I was like, I don't want to get into a fight here. You know what I mean? You want everything to be kosher. You just want to do the right thing by everyone that you've been in business with. And then I spoke to my wife a bit about it. She's like, Sam, you've been really good at coaching. You've got the knowledge behind you because everything that you've done with the last business, and you've probably got the personality type to be able to relate to people and help people out. So I made the call. I made the call to my old business partner, and I'm like, mate, how would you feel if I coached brokers? Phone went radio silence, and I'm like, oh, here we go, about to have an argument. And there wasn't. He's like, Sam, if you'd done it, you'd be the best at it, mate. Let's amend the agreement so you can go out and coach brokers. And basically everything was lining up. The universe was lining up. So last year, for the last couple of months, basically took on 6 brokers, didn't want any money. I was just like, hey, can you just test this out with me for 3 months? Tell me if it's good, if it's shit, or if it's somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean? And so, coached those guys for a couple of months, basically ironed out any issues, and then hard launched at the start of this year. I was like, all right, I think we've got a business model that works. And then so that's how that came to fruition as well.
I think your superpower is that you're very personable and you break things down very, very simply for people as you stand in front of the infamous whiteboard as it is right now. You know what I mean? But yeah, I guess what's the best feedback you've had from the brokers that you've been coaching, or what are some of the big wins that you've had?
So you could probably break it down into two categories, right? You could probably break it down into two categories. There's the um, there's the typical stuff that you would expect where someone's come and they've worked with me and they've just grown exponentially. They've kicked financial goals, they've kicked business goals, commerciality, and they've there's a direct correlation between implementing and executing the strategies and the tactics and them getting better results in their business, which is awesome, right? It's the whole reason you get coaching in the first place, to go further or to go faster. So there's that element of it which I really love. And then there's the other element of it, which is a little bit more qualitative, where, you know, people have said to me things, this is the most supportive community I've ever been a part of in my life. People have said to me things like Sam, I had, no confidence in myself before I met you, and now I'm confident and I'm proud of myself. I've had people who were gonna throw the towel in, you know what I mean? They were struggling with the game, and there was pressure from the family. There was kids on the way, and then they've turned that around. They're like, oh man, I feel so much, more confident in myself and my ability to provide. And the financial goals of crushing it are awesome, but those stories where I'm getting goosebumps, the stories of where, like, you've made someone's life better, that's that's pretty awesome, man. You know what I mean? That's pretty good.
Yeah, mate. And look, I think one thing that's wonderful for you, and look, I see your, am I going to get this right? It's Friday or Monday you do your wins for the whole. And they're so varied in what they are. But honestly, mate, I look at some of them and I go, Broker just wrote 6 million his first month. Like, it's what you're doing is great, mate. I really respect it. And I think another thing that's a superpower for your brokers, not you, is that you are only learning yourself. So if you're delivering these outcomes for them in your first year, imagine what it's going to be like for him in 10 years when you're the best version of Sam Panetta broker coach you can be as well.
It does, mate. It compounds. Like, even 10 months in, I feel like I'm 10x better at doing the coaching than I was at the start of the year. Do you know what I mean? So it is this compounding loop where I get better, the brokers get better. I see more stuff, I get better, the brokers get better. Do you know what I mean? Where it sort of compounds. And I think the big aspect of it is all the people that are in the room as well. It's all the people that are in the community. I like to think that I'm clever, but I'm not 1/10 as clever as everyone in that room combined. Do you know what I mean? And when you walk on the path with people that are walking a similar path, the challenges in a mortgage broking business are largely similar, right? They're largely similar. We encounter them at different stages of the journey, but at each stage, the problems they're not unique. Put it that way. They're not unique problems.
Yeah, like the challenge when I speak to brokers and I'll sit down with some of the businesses I work with, and our relationship is as such now that we can both have a bit of a natter to each other. You know what I mean?
Mm.
The guards are completely down. Like, what's going on in your personal life? How's business going? And when I tell them about some of the ills of what I do and the shit that it puts you through, they go, fuck, that sounds so similar to this scenario of what I'm dealing with. And I'm like, yeah, because what we do is essentially the same. We're in a sales role, so to speak, where we're relying on this party to come to the table and that party to come to the table. And there's a lot that's in our control, i.e., um, the structures that you put in place, but there's so much out there that you just have to put out and lead to the universe, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What does winning look like for you and the businesses that I guess you're pushing out? Is it freedom? Is it family? Or is it the impact that they have?
I think you have to take a well-rounded view on that. Do you know what I mean? I think the biggest difference I feel for me in this business and for many other business that I've been in before, every other time I've been working, there's been that element of needing money. Do you know what I mean? And this business has never been that element there. And so I think having the flexibility to choose who I work with and surround myself with people that I really enjoy spending my time with, that's what I want. Right. I don't care if I work 10 hours a day. I'm more than happy to do 10 hours a day, but I want that to be with people that I know, like, trust and respect, and I enjoy working with. If I can continue to do that over very long periods of time, then I'd consider that a success.
Like I said, I know some of the brokers in your group, great people. Like you have brought a solid community together, and thanks for letting me come on and share some stuff with them as well. Now, if you could chat to bloody 16-year old Sam, yeah, who's kicking up a bit of a ruckus in school and just about to get his first job in the game, like, what do you think he would look at you and say now? Like, won't recognize you, not just because of
I
the
reckon
beard.
if I had to give one piece of grow a beard. That's what I tell him. No, I think that if I had to give one single piece of advice to my younger self, it'd be don't be scared. I think I probably never had the confidence to go as hard as what I thought I could. Just sheer fear, right? Just sheer fear that I couldn't do it or I couldn't accomplish it. I do know now that the only way of continuing to grow is to push into that feed, to push yourself to limit and to fail, right? That's where you have to grow. And I think I played it safe for a very long period of time because I just sort of never pushed myself that far to the brink because I was too scared of it. Even, when I went into spray painting and not going into finance at 15, I wanted to do it. I didn't think I was capable of doing it. And I had this massive fear factor. And so if I could go back and tell that young fella something, don't be scared, mate. You're gonna fail anyway, so might as well do it quickly.
You say, because your dinners were sat around the table with a blue collar family, all doing blue collar jobs, right? Did you feel like that might have been not a deterrent, but like, there might have been a bias for you to go, this is what I'm supposed to do as well. I can't achieve or do something different to what everyone around this table is doing because that is who I am. This is my identity.
Well, like 1,000%, that's true. It's funny. I remember this story when I was a young kid. We used to go racing when we were younger. We used to race drag cars. All the family would all get together and we'd go out there in like a big Land Cruiser, one of the old Land Cruisers that we could all fit in. And everyone was talking about what their favorite cars were. All right. And it was, Manas and Monaros and Commodores and Falcons and whatever it is. Right? Everyone had these things. And it got to my turn and I was a little kid. And it was like, what are your favorite cars? I'm like, I like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And everyone laughed at me. Everyone laughed at me. I'm like, what's so funny? And they said, look, those sorts of cars are for rich people. They're not for people like us, right? And in my head, I was like, oh, I'll get rich then. And I was like, the car went silent. It's like no one had even thought about that before. Like no one had even thought that maybe that was a solution to the problem. And so there's definitely a massive element of that in you only know what you know in life,
Finally, just to wrap it up, like, what does the future look like for you in the broker coach business? Have you mapped that out, or are you still swimming and rolling with the punches right with the brokers that you've got now?
It's really funny. I used to plan out years in advance, Joe. I used to plan out in the business, in life. I used to think really, really far out into the future. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. I do like to have a more simple approach. And basically, what I like to do is set the exact next target, right? I slay the biggest dragon on the next mountain. That's what I like to do. And that's the way I coach as well. It's like, don't worry about those 50 other things that are going to happen over the next 20 years. Let's fix this one thing. I run my business like that as well. So each stage, I set myself a very particular goal that can be achieved in sort of a 90-day period. I achieve it and I move on. And that way I've got the blinkers on. I just focus on exactly what's next. So the goals that I've set are not, they're not too out there. They're not anywhere in the thing. They're between the 1st of October and New Year's Eve. That's the next goal. And I try to run it like that as well.
Thank you, mate. I did have another last question for you. Sorry, it's a double last question, yeah. So I had a bit of a thought, right? And for any brokers that might be listening to this that don't have a coach at the moment that they're dealing with, they're not sharing their wins, their losses, whatever it is with someone, and they're not looking for that strategic feedback. There might be some brokers listening that are at a fork where they go, do I want to scale and do I want to bring in headcount and grow a business, or do I want to continue growing what is I guess like a high income producing business job for me? Like what advice do you give to those two people? And I know that's a bit of a wraparound question, but like, I guess, yeah, what advice would you give to someone that is stuck at that fork in the road?
So there's essentially two ways to build a brokerage, right? And you've hit the nail on the head. You go the solo broker model with support, right, which is better for income because you're taking a larger share of the revenue, so it's better for cash flow. But it's a less valuable business. A, because when the broker stops selling, the business stops. And B, you might be able to sell that business one day at a multiple of trail, not a multiple of EBIT. The brokerage model is the opposite, right? Where your margins are going to be less because you're paying salespeople to do the doing, but the value of the business is more because it should be able to continue to grow in absence of the owner doing the doing. And it's a more valuable asset if you can build it to the point where it's a self-sustaining enterprise that could be sold as a going concern rather than be carved off and sold at a point of trial. I do think that from sort of 0 to 10 mil a month, everyone should be going the solo plus support model, right? Because you've got to build your marketing engine, you've got to build your systems engine, right? Getting deals in, getting deals done. When you get to that 10 to 30 mil a month mark in settlements, that's when the decision has to be made. Do I go super hard here, try earn a million a year, million and a half a year, whatever it is, and just bust my ass, or do I want to build something that's more sustainable that I can build over a very long period of time, and ultimately have it growing in independently of myself. There's no right or wrong answer, Joe, to that. There's no right or wrong answer, but I do think that having your activities reflect the ambition is mandatory. All right. If you've got activities that are brokerage building, but you want to be solo, misalignment. If you've got activities that are solo, but you want to build a brokerage, misalignment. So as long as our actions match our intentions, then I think we're going to be all right no matter which path we choose.
Also, to speak to, I guess, my world, that's someone going, okay, I need to build a brand that is going to be attractive to clients and will continue to be attractive to clients. That's the solo model. From the I want to scale as a brokerage model, you want to create a brand that's out there in the market that people go, shit, that looks like a great place to work. That looks like I'm going to learn stuff. That's like they have real processes built out. Is that fair to say those activities matching the outcome? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. When you're solo with support, you're marketing for clients. When you're building a brokerage, you're marketing for clients and team.
Thank you, mate. And I don't want to extract too much knowledge from you, and it's knowledge I already know anyway. I appreciate time is free today. But with this solo and support model, what structures do you see to be working? Are we talking fully offshore? Are we talking a hybrid of offshore to do the admin, sort of non-client facing stuff, somebody onshore assisting? How does that usually pan out in businesses?
I'll be honest with you, I've seen all three work, mate. I've seen all three work and I've seen all three struggle. So I don't think that there's like a Red Riding Hood for fixed porridge style of doing business. I've seen people with all offshore staff, solo broker plus support, right? All offshore. I've seen that work. I've seen teams that are hybrid. They've got onshore staff and they've got offshore staff. And I've seen those that only have onshore staff. And I've seen all three of those models work. And I've seen all three of those models not work. So I feel that there's extra layers to that produces the final outcome rather than saying one of them's better than the other. They all got their pros and they all got their cons.
Any model being mismatched is not a good model, right? You know what I mean? I think it's fair to say.
100%. It comes down to so much the style of the deals that we're writing, the character of the leaders in the business. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that's qualitative more than quantitative.
Sam, I just want to say thank you for coming on here. Like I said, I wanted to get to know you. I want people to get to know you past Sam Panetta, broker coach. Try not to extract too much information from you. People know where to find you if they want to get that. Yeah, mate, look, I really appreciate your time and thank you for doing this.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you very much. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Wonderful, Sam. We'll chat soon, all right, mate? Take care.
Good on you, Joe. Thank you, mate.
See you soon, brother.
See you, brother.
Bye.
Bye.